Edwina, are you convinced by the candidates' positions on crime? Can you see much difference between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak and where they might sit on this very important but very difficult agency to get right?
Well, I think there are very few differences between them on this, and that's a relief in a way. And I'm not sure anybody much has got the easy answers to sorting out the problems facing the police. My late husband was 35 years in the police, of which 30 years was in the Met. And were he here now, he would say, one of the problems is that the police are not there to be loved. The police are not there to be soft in any way. The police are there to catch the bad guys. And if they start to allow their focus to drift into anything else, such as checking up what somebody has written on Twitter, for example, then they're not going to have the time and they're not going to have the available resources to deal with the everyday stuff. I live in Derbyshire here. The rate for solving burglaries is abysmal. You get a police number, an offence number, and then you have to talk to the insurance company. That's absolutely not good enough.
No.
You had a little clip earlier of a senior police officer talking about some tragic murders that have been going on, and his first thoughts were with the victims. That's very commendable. But actually, his first thoughts should be, and he should be absolutely clear about this, that they're after the perpetrator, getting the evidence, getting them into justice as quickly as possible, and reassuring the public that the police are doing their job.
Interesting. I love that take on it, Edwina. Peter, would you just respond to that? The police have become soft and they're spending too much time worrying about the victims and not enough time focusing on catching the criminals.
Well, that's been said for my whole lifetime, probably a lot longer. I think the police do show a lot more emotional intelligence these days, but the police, like the rest of us, make mistakes. So I think I'd be wary of saying they've gone soft. I think that's far too broad brush. I thought Chris Hobbs gave a very nuanced and thoughtful description of some of these issues, particularly with the burglary detection rate being horrifically low. And as Chris said, there are many reasons, from police underfunding, lack of training and being distracted to non-crime issues like mental health, which are important, but not the role of police constables. But just to pick up on what Chris said, let me say explicitly the one point which I feel hasn't been addressed is austerity. Now, you can have a wider debate about the economy and decisions taken initially by David Cameron and George Osborne more than 10 years ago now, but police stations have closed and officers in some areas have been cut. Officers are starved of resources at a time the population has risen. And I think what we've seen is splashed the Times today, the interview with the Chief Inspector of Constabulary, that austerity does have consequences, but sometimes the politicians who've opted for that path are no longer around when the fruits of it are felt.
Thank you, Peter. Edwina, you see, I'm just not convinced it's all about funding. I think that, as we've seen with the instance of the 6 or so police officers turning up in Hampshire to arrest somebody for putting something offensive on Twitter, it seems like there are often police officers at the wrong place at the wrong time. And maybe it is hard for them to know whether they, what their actual purpose is. We hear a lot about the fact that they have to do a lot of box ticking exercises. They have to be always mindful, is somebody going to sue them? Maybe the whole thing needs a line putting through it, and we start again and we have a clear vision for what we want our police officers to do and the powers that they should have. Does it need completely rebuilding, Edwina, from the ground up again?
No, I think much of the lead has got to come from the top. And I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic, actually. We have a new chief constable in Greater Manchester who seems to be making quite a lot of progress. We have a new commissioner at the Met, brand new, just in place. A new deputy commissioner has just been appointed. I think we might actually see the senior leadership of the Met and of Greater Manchester moving away from being endlessly politically correct. It's a desirable thing to be, yes, it is. But if it means that the police officers are going to the easy jobs and not doing the difficult jobs, then we are all the losers. Sorting out burglary you've got multiple taken into account. So you've got a lot of different points where you're collecting evidence and so on. And it can be painstaking and time consuming, checking all the cameras and that sort of thing. And when you bring them to court, it may be only getting a rap over the knuckles. So that can be very, very frustrating. So what I'm saying is I think the lead has to come from the top. I think how police resources are managed is a significant element of choice for very senior officers. And I think if the police themselves feel that they're doing a good job, then some of the problems with recruitment will get much easier. I totally support them trying to recruit from lots of different communities and also getting information from different communities. And that's something that the police, I think, could concentrate far more on as well.